And it's the dumbest bill in America. And the dumbest bill in America is the California millionaires tax. You got it right. It's the California millionaires tax, presented by Assemblyman Miguel Santiago, Democrat, of course, from Los Angeles. The California millionaires tax intends to tax anyone who makes at least $1 million and then graduates it up to $2 million, $5 million, and so forth, so that your effective federal and state tax rate combined in California would be more than 50% of your income. More than 50% of your income you would pay to California because of the California millionaires tax if it were to pass. It's Assembly Bill 1253, introduced and sponsored by Miguel Santiago, Democrat, Los Angeles. We have a clip from Assemblyman Miguel Santiago of California, and here is the first clip.
I'm going to direct you to my district director and give him a buzz, Mark Gonzalez, who really quarterbacked the free community college efforts that we did. So he's got some experience, quarterback public banks, and now is going to help us to quarterback, along with you all, the ability to move forward a millionaire's tax in the state of California. We are going to work extremely hard to make sure that California leads the nation, and where California does its progressive policies, we know that the rest of the country will follow suit.
And that's Miguel Santiago, Assemblyman Miguel Santiago of California. He represents parts of Los Angeles, talking about Assembly Bill 1253. And of course, he also is bragging about the fact that just the previous year, he got 1 year free of community college. And then now he's trying to pay for all of that stuff by going after the successful. But you have to understand the mentality of Miguel Santiago of California in introducing the California millionaires tax, because this assemblyman, he is just beside himself as to the fact that he actually had to work to get ahead. His parents are immigrants, but he was born here in the United States, Miguel. So he is an American citizen. His parents immigrated to the United States. And he's saying, well, just because of the fact that he started with nothing and his parents are immigrants, that he had to work hard, and that's not fair. We have a clip on this, and here it is.
Look, when you think about opportunity, you have to think about how kids are raised. And I'll break it to a very, very simple story, which is my story. And it's not unique. Most of us here who are of color or women have benefited from affirmative action. Many of you share similar stories. If your parents came here from a different country and they worked extremely hard, it wasn't my choice to be born poor. It wasn't my choice to be born and not understand a language. It wasn't my choice to live in Section 8 housing. It wasn't my choice to work full-time while I was in college.
Yes, but it was your choice the day that you were old enough to know better, that you had to work hard to get ahead, and that if you wanted to get ahead, there was an opportunity, and is an opportunity, that exists today in the United States to get ahead, which is why your parents came here to begin with. They came here for the opportunity. But Miguel is basically saying that because of his race, he's playing the race card naturally, because of his race, he didn't get the same opportunities as someone who, let's say, was born in a wealthier area of Los Angeles than the area where he was raised, in public housing. And we can go on and on about why this is so wrong, because we have a Democrat Party, including Miguel Santiago, first generation, basically saying the only reason why I'm not successful is because I'm an immigrant, and because basically there's systemic racism against people who are of Hispanic backgrounds. It's ridiculous, folks, because this guy is an assemblyman in California. His very achievements undermine his whole argument about what he has accomplished, as well as what he's saying that he can accomplish. So we have a final clip of Miguel Santiago about the millionaires tax, the California millionaires tax. And once again, he's going to justify why it is that California millionaires owe the folks who are less fortunate, because without those millionaires paying more to California, they're the reason why people in certain zip codes aren't doing so well. You have to listen to this to believe it, and here it is.
So this whole idea, and I'm not saying anyone has said it, but this whole idea at the time that certain kids weren't qualified, that everybody should be equal, and that race shouldn't matter, well, it does. Because the zip code that you were born in determines where you're going to go. And it's not coincidence that the zip code you were born in oftentimes reflects what you look like. That's not a secret. If you grew up in the neighborhoods that I represent, more than likely, you'll be Latino. If you grew up in certain areas in South LA, more than likely, you're going to be African American. And we're going to have a harder time getting there.
So he's saying the only reason why you're not doing well is because of your zip code and because of your race. And meanwhile, he's an assemblyman, first generation, and he's an assemblyman. This is the classic Marxist argument that we live in a zero-sum economy where a millionaire who does well is the reason you're not doing well. And he's also making the argument, as he said in an earlier clip, Miguel Santiago of the millionaires tax, that if these folks pay more, his life is going to be so much better because, after all, Miguel Santiago had to work so much harder than everybody else. Welcome to America. This is what's been happening since the very day this country came on the face of the earth and people started settling here. You had to work hard to get ahead. And so we're glad that you're here, but you have to work. So why is that so bad? So listen to the California millionaires tax, about what the Wall Street Journal says what this millionaires tax actually does. The Assembly bill, according to the Wall Street Journal, would raise the top rate to 14.3% for households making more than $1 million, 16.3% on income above $2 million, and 16.8% above $5 million. The combined federal and California top marginal rate would rise to 53.8% on wage income and 40.6% on capital gains. And then there's another Assembly bill we've talked about previously, which is a 4% wealth tax on assets over $30 million, completely separate from this bill. So in other words, Mr. Santiago, Assemblyman Santiago of California of the millionaires tax, thinks that it's okay for government to take more than half of your income when you're making $1 million. And I'll grant you, $1 million a year is a lot of money, but if we're taking half of that, 53% of it, by my estimate, you're leaving with $470,000. And you're saying to yourself, why am I working? Okay, $470,000 is a lot of money, but I'm giving that much money to the state. I have a right to know where that money is going. And so you should also take into consideration the Tax Cut and Jobs Act at the federal level, because California is having a hard time passing these extra millionaires taxes and income taxes because you can only deduct 10%. The federal cap of $10,000, there's a $10,000 federal cap of local and state income tax deductions. And so therefore, they're having a hard time passing this, and it just shows you how out of control the assemblymen are, like Miguel Santiago. He also even talked about ACA 5, which, to be frank with you, one of those clips was from. ACA 5 basically says, hey, everybody's equal under the law, it doesn't really matter. And then it goes on to say, well, we're going to repeal that and give special status to people who are not white. Literally, that's what ACA 5 does. And that is exactly what Miguel Santiago is doing in this very bill. He's doing the exact same thing. I got to tell you something. The Marxist, it's one thing. My family and my ancestors, and by the way, my wife's grandparents and her mother came here for an opportunity at a better life. And they never once came here thinking that they were owed anything and were never on the dole. And they always were so proud and always worked and were so thankful that they became American citizens. And they always felt like they owed this country. And when you hear this kind of language that this individual, Miguel Santiago, the Marxist language from him, that he is owed because he had to work to get ahead, it just shows you how far left, how far progressive, and how crazy the Democrat Party has literally become, just completely and utterly out of control. And so that's why I got to tell you, we have to fight against taxes like this California millionaires tax, Assembly Bill 1253. Thankfully, it did not move forward. It looked like it was moving forward for quite some time, but it didn't. And I almost hope that it would have, only because, hear me out, podcast listeners, only because I was hoping Gavin Newsom would have been forced to basically look at this and veto it. And because I'm not really sure what he would have done. I think he probably would have been forced to veto it because he knows how many people are leaving the state of California without question. And so that is the dumbest bill in America. This is Mark Fisher from Mark and the Millennials. I want to thank our millennial, which is our assistant producer, Christopher Hopkins, who's with me here today. And of course, our producer, Adam Katura. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and our website. See you next time.